I want to talk about Justice Democrats in a second, and what your goals are for the organization, since you're running it, and what your vision for it is. But first, it's just a little bit of background. What does it mean to be Director of Organizing Technology for Sanders' campaign?
Sure. Yeah. So in the Sanders campaign, we had this huge groundswell of volunteer support, right? And they're all around the country. And we had this distributed team that was responsible for organizing kind of a national base of volunteers, basically get people organized in national teams to make voter contact calls, knock on doors, all kinds of stuff, host events. And I was sort of the embedded tech guy making technology for volunteers to organize themselves. So I would do stuff like create software for volunteers to find volunteers near them to call and contact to bring to their own parties and stuff like that. So it was kind of a new position. I don't actually know if previous campaigns have had a director of organizing technology. So I got to experiment with it. It was pretty fun.
So you know technology, and through the Sanders campaign, you know organizing. So how are we going to organize Justice Democrats?
Well, we're going to take a lot of the stuff we learned from the Sanders campaign. You know, that was, I call it a proving model for the whole system. We saw this campaign that was grassroots fueled, grassroots donors, volunteerism, and that was able to out voter contact, outraise, you know, on all these metrics that people spout, it defeated the Hillary Clinton campaign. It defeated this billionaire-backed campaign, right? So we're going to do that same thing, but we're going to take it forward to Congress, and we have to do something that's big. We're going to organize in a distributed fashion. We're going to have all the same problems, and we just had our chance to kind of make our mistakes in a lot of ways.
People might think, well, Hillary Clinton won, so you know how successful was the Bernie Sanders campaign? Now, I think most of the Young Turks viewers know that that's a silly way of looking at it, but for older people who are totally clueless, let me explain. So Hillary Clinton had enormous brand name recognition, and in politics, that's actually, unfortunately, the most important thing. And so she had a 60-point lead when you guys started the campaign, and a 60-point lead is not a lead that can be closed, and certainly not in a year, and certainly with no name recognition that Bernie Sanders had. And so, and if at the time you had said to almost everyone, hey, Bernie Sanders is going to close that 60-point lead, I mean, everybody in Washington would have looked at you like you had 3 or maybe 4 eyes. Like, you know, to Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton, you're crazy. And she had every, endorsement, every piece of the backing, including obviously the DNC as it turned out. But he didn't win. But if you said, look, he's going to close that lead, he's going to outraise Hillary Clinton, no one would have believed that. With small donors, you're going to outraise the Clinton machine. They would have thought you were crazy, but you did do it, right? So as it turns out, the name recognition, and the endorsements, et cetera, eked out a victory for Hillary Clinton in the primary. So we know that. But it was really a Herculean task, and it was amazing that in terms of the votes, you guys got that close. And certainly in outraising her, unbelievable.
Here's the thing that the corporate Democrats don't get, right? They saw this whole Bernie thing, and they're like, oh, that was just a phase. That was a blip. They didn't get the real message out of that, which was that Bernie Sanders was able to tap into something that creates enthusiasm. He had a pure message. He had the credential to back it up, right? And people are afraid that for some reason everyone's going to forget about that and stop caring about that. And that's not true. Bernie Sanders was talking about doing something huge. He was talking about a political revolution, and we're going to have to do the same thing. Because people want to help when they feel like their time is worth helping. That's the biggest lesson. Is one thing I learned from organizing in Bernie Sanders' campaign. You can get the best people to organize if they think it's worth their time. So we have to make it worth their time.
Look, the reason I'm excited and I wanted to be involved is that everybody talks about the revolution. I talk about the revolution. But what is the revolution? What is it physically? What does it manifest as? Well, if it's just an idea, or it's just marches, or it's just protests, that doesn't really get the job done, right? In order to get the job done, you have to actually win. We're going to run hundreds of candidates, and we're not going to take any corporate money, and we're going to primary all of the establishment Democrats. So we're not going to be like, is it Chuck Schumer? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? No, it's a hard no. We're gonna get people to actually run who care about their community. And to me, I didn't see anyone else doing that, and I think that's a powerful idea. So if this ain't the revolution, I don't know what is. In Washington, there's a lot of brakes. It's not a lot of gas pedals when you want to go in a progressive direction. There's a lot of brakes, tapping the brakes. But do you want to go that far? And I've now done many interviews since in this last 24 hours that we launched this. And the number one question I get is, but wait a minute now, are you really going to primary vulnerable Democrats? Yeah, that's the whole point. Part of the reason that they're vulnerable is because they don't have a populist economic message. When you look at those nominees, what's the thing that you're looking for where you think, no, this person can actually win?
I mean, we're looking for people who are strong leaders in their community, right? So we're looking for people who have this lifetime of service. And here's the crazy thing. If you look at the backgrounds of incumbents in office right now, they have nothing impressive. Most of them are just, they do this track of going to an Ivy League college, hooking up with donors, get into office. And it's, so we're not actually up against impressive people in that sense. But when you look at these nominees, they're so impressive. They're people who are, they turned a school around by just coming in, they volunteered, and they didn't have to. They had a cushy job they could have taken, but they didn't do it, right? Or we have someone who's done 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He didn't have to, he came back. He became an ACLU president in his local chapter. So these people that just have this lifetime of service. They don't have the political record, but they have the life record, and that's what we're looking for.
And if this election proved anything, it's that people don't want the standard politician, right? I mean, they'll even vote for a guy who I think is both a goofball and a monster just so they won't have to vote for a standard politician. So all the things that the media has been telling you your whole life is exactly the reverse. They tell you, no, you have to be polished and you have to be studied and you have to read off a teleprompter and and don't make any mistakes and don't ever act like a human. No, in the Justice Democrats, we allow humans. Okay, and in fact, we encourage that. We want that, of course. We want you to be real, because that not only is better way to represent the community, but it's also more effective in actually winning.
Yeah.
So we're done with the era of people rolling up their sleeves, and because a consultant told them to roll up their sleeves and makes them look more real. You know how you're going to look more real? By being more real. Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress with. And so the minute that you do that, by the way, what's the first thing you do? You get money out of politics, so that then everybody's on the same playing field. Because money's going to come back in, right? And those guys are like, oh, if we throw out a couple of them, they're going to want to put in even more money against us, right? That's why this has got to be a wave. And so I'm excited about it. But so the whisper of a dream. If in 2018 we don't achieve our grand vision of a wholesale change in 2 years, which is very, very hard, we know that, right? Are you kidding me? If you got 6, let alone 12, let alone 24 people in Congress, you know what would happen in Washington? People would freak the hell out. They'd be like, oh my God, what in the world? These guys that had no money to begin with, no nothing to begin with, just put 24 people in Congress, and they're humans. Right? They're an accountant, they're a doctor, they're, maybe a housewife, a house dad, whatever, but who actually brought all the kids to soccer, who actually cared about the community. It makes me, in Maine, they have public financing. And so one of the women who won in Maine runs the local grocery store, the cash register. She doesn't own it, she doesn't manage it, she just runs the cash register. But she knows everybody in the community because everybody goes to that mart and they go to the cash register. So she won, right? So amazing things are possible if you live in a real democracy. And I think we could bring that back. So it's exciting times, man. We think that we might be able to do it in a way that doesn't require billions of dollars, right? But in the old days, how much money did you need to run a congressional campaign?
By old days, you mean like these days?
As in
about
4 years ago, 2 years ago / today.
Yeah, it's about $1 million a congressional race. That's the going rate. And so the other way of saying that is that's the price tag for a politician these days, if you're on that block. But yeah, it's if we want to run 435 races, if we're running them one at a time, it'd be about probably $400 million.
Yeah. So now, guys, don't panic. You don't need the $400 million overnight, and we don't have a sugar daddy, so that's not how it's going to work. It is going to work $27 at a time. On the other hand, Bernie Sanders, $27 at a time, raised $250 million. This group in particular runs progressive candidates. That's what we do, right? And we primary corporate Democrats with no mercy, right? Because if we don't have strong progressives, Saikat, now we could whisper of a nightmare. I'm worried that if we don't do this, 4 years from now, the third ways of the world that are busy now spending a lot of money on reports to show us that actually the better way to go is more corporate Democrats. And they get their way and they run another fake, inauthentic person that takes a ton of money from corporations. Hey, we had to take the money to win. That's what they'll say. We had to take the money to win.
Yeah.
And they'd run them against Trump. And Democrats lose, progressives lose. Unimaginable, unthinkable. We have to stop that at all costs. And I think that if the minute we get anybody into Congress, let alone the 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever that number is, then people start to go, oh shoot, it is possible. It is possible, and that is the winning strategy. Look at how they did it.
And here's the thing that I'm excited about. If you look at Bernie, he won, 25, 26 states, something like that, or 24 states. If we do anywhere close to that well, we're sending actual people to Congress, right? We're not just winning some states in a primary, we're sending bodies to Congress.
The presidential race, unfortunately, is winner take all, right? So it's binary. You either win or you don't win. But if those same people who showed up for Bernie in the primaries show up in congressional races, it's not winner take all. You could capture 17 races. You can capture 34 seats, 48. We don't know, right? But if all those folks, the same number of people who showed up for Bernie, show up to vote in actual primaries and then congressional races, then we're going to shock the world. And that's all we need. All we need is the same number of people who voted for Bernie. And then you get to change the world.